Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Piacenti and I'm from MassMutual. I have Jerry Hewlick with me here today as well. Thank you for inviting us to the Ataxia Conference. We're delighted to speak with you today. We're going to speak about the 10 basic financial steps for special needs caregivers. As a special needs caregiver myself, this is something that's near and dear to me. So we're going to walk you through some of the things that may keep you up at night or some of the things that you may need to address before it's too late. So our first slide, Jer. So I have some disclosures that I'm going to go through today. These are the ataxia disclosures. And just to let you know, we are volunteers. We have no formal business relationship with ataxia. MassMutual's disclosures are also letting you know that we are not attorneys, though we do work closely with attorneys as well as tax advisors. So anything we go through today, we just want you to know we are not attorneys. So what's important to you as a caregiver? As a caregiver myself, it's the one thing that keeps me up at night. What would happen if I was no longer here? What would happen if someone had to step in and take over from me? What's the plan? Have I thought about it? Have I really considered what would happen if I was no longer around? This is something that as a parent, a caregiver, keeps many of us up at night. It's the person that you want to step in that can really take care of the person you've been caring for and do it the same way that we've done it and is really looking out for their best interests.
Kelly, one thing I would add here is that the concept of caregiving and giving care can be very stressful. So, we always encourage the caregivers themselves to be taking care of themselves and looking for opportunities of respite and looking for things that can help relieve some of the stresses that are going to be involved in the whole caregiving process.
Exactly, because you can really get caught up in it and it consumes you and you don't realize it. And even planning for the future, it's something we talk to families every day about. We are the largest minority population in the country, people with disabilities. And the percentage that have planned is so very small that it's frightening. But we know the reason behind that. The reason behind that is that we are totally consumed with the day-to-day care and all the different things that we have to deal with. But we're going to go through today some of the things that you need to take into consideration for planning for the future. The first thing that we really want you to start thinking about are medical treatments, education, skill development, employment, housing, transportation, travel, social, and recreational. So when you plan for the future, these are some of the things that have to come into play. What are the medical treatments today? What will the medical treatments for the person you're caring for be or look like in the future? How about education? Years ago, people with special needs or people with developmental disabilities didn't go on to higher education. Now they do. Are you caring for someone that's going to have ongoing education? And how about skill development? If it ends at education and they're not going to go on to higher learning, there's also skill development that happens. There are programs and places to go. What's the plan for the person you're caring for? Is it something they're interested in? And how about employment? Many people with disabilities are employed full-time. What does that look like? Do you need an employment coach? What's the plan? And housing. With my own son, I wanted him to live in our house forever, but that may not always be the plan. Maybe there's a group home. Maybe there's an independent living. What's the housing look like for the person you're caring for? Transportation. Do they need to get to and from work? How about travel? Is there a family trip or a trip you'd like the person to go on every year? And really, one of the most important things for the future is social and recreational. We put it on there, and I think people often, don't think about it, how important it is to our community. It's huge. For somebody that's been maybe in a school environment, they're used to their teachers, they're used to other students, and now suddenly they're by themselves, which could be the worst case scenario for them. So what's the ongoing social and recreational activities look like for them? And that's something that you can plan for, something you can sit down and talk about. So what we're saying is think about all of the things for the future, but these are some of the things that should or may be at the top of your list.
And Kelly, as we're talking about planning too, this is really a holistic approach to looking at what the needs of an individual may be or the family as a unit, And everything has a financial backdrop. So it's a holistic view, but when you look at the various things that need to take place, there's going to be a financial backdrop. And so what we're doing in this process is, in some respects, trying to quantify what each of these needs may be over time to the extent that we can. And sometimes that's quite difficult because we can't vision out this necessarily everything in the future, but then try to build solutions around what those things are, so that we're building a structure around living. We're building a structure that might include, as you'll see later, legal instruments and everything else, but integrating the financial issues, which are going to be so important to the overall plan. So as a part of this, as a part of this, we want to deal with, all the various different assets, various different plans that you have available to you. And, when there's going to be government benefits involved, sometimes there may be a means test that's coming into play. There may be other things from a qualification standpoint. And so when you're doing estate planning and, looking to avoid any kind of fees or expenses and avoid probate to the best you can, then the beneficiary arrangements you put in play, or TODs or PODs, and these are like TODs is what you might put in mutual funds or stocks and bonds, transference on death, and paid on death, or for like bank accounts or savings accounts, and all your assets, inheritances, insurance benefits, and making sure that the titling, the ownership, and how you're going to direct that asset on the death of a person, could be the caregiver and the impact of the person they're caring for. All of those are going to come into play in trying to build an overall plan and structure that aligns with integrating employer benefits, integrating government benefits, as well as the legal structure itself. Kelly, anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things that I would, when we talk about reviewing beneficiaries, many of us have life insurance policies through work that we're not even familiar with. And one of the things is that it typically goes to your significant other and then your children. If you're caring for someone with special needs that will or should qualify for government benefits, you want to make sure that their name is not on there outright. It would have to be under a special needs trust so that you don't lose qualification for government benefits. The whole reason with reviewing beneficiaries is that if you're caring for someone with special needs, we want to keep their assets under $2,000. We often don't even realize that maybe a grandparent or a parent or someone has their name on a policy, and that could disqualify them from government benefits. So reviewing beneficiaries, having the conversation with family members is going to help you, because we don't want to do all this great planning and then suddenly someone leaves them money and everything you've done has fallen at the wayside. So reviewing beneficiary designations is really important to us. One of the other
that brings you right to the discussion about the family meeting, Kelly.
Exactly. I mean, one of the things that we talk about to all of our families, Jerry's in the field, he works with our families every day, is really have a family meeting to discuss the future needs. Communication is huge. Discussing concerns and future care options is a big deal. I mean, I know everybody says we live together, we know what everybody else wants. Not the case. Jerry knows on a daily basis or a weekly basis, I hear from a sibling that suddenly the parents passed away or someone passed away and didn't talk to them about some of the things they needed them to do in the future for their sibling. Have that family meeting, discuss what future care options, discuss if the siblings want to do it, because in many, many cases, the siblings want to be part of the person's life, but don't necessarily want them to live with them or take care of them. So communication is huge. When you have a family meeting, that's really where some of these things should come out.
And I think it's a natural kind of thing to almost avoid the communication sometimes for extended family members. Part of it around privacy, but it's important because we've had so many people that will go and try to apply for certain benefits and find that there are accounts or assets out there that are going to cause a problem. And so it's a good process to basically get everybody on the same page. And the more specific your plan, the easier it is for people to understand what is to take place. And that's what needs to be organized. We even had situations in families with husbands and wives that are kind of divided and conquered. And somebody is going to be dealing with all the forms and trying to apply for things, and somebody else is dealing with the appointments. And so they've divided what they're doing, but they don't necessarily communicate even between them what they're doing. So this is just a very critical piece for success when you're looking at a plan.
Exactly.
So Kelly, how about team?
Well, I mean, team is also, an extension of the family meeting. It's really financial professionals. At MassMutual, we have special care planners who have a chartered special needs consultant designation. And what that is that they've been trained in special needs. At MassMutual, we require anyone that works in special needs to have this designation. But other insurance companies have advisors that have the designation as well. And what you'll often find is advisors that work in this field are like us. They have either a child or a dependent, or they're philanthropic, but there's a reason that they're working in this area. But more importantly, they know about special needs. They know about some of the unique planning tools that you need to use if you're working with a special needs family. So we always say, when you're looking at financial professionals, make sure it's somebody that isn't dabbling in special needs, somebody that says, oh yeah, I can do it, I'm familiar with it. You really want someone that's an expert. Same thing with the attorney. We use attorneys that work specifically in special needs. Some of them are elder law attorneys, but one of the questions we often ask them is, how many special needs trusts have you done a year? What I tell my families is, if I was getting a divorce, I wouldn't go to a real estate attorney. It would be the same deal with special needs. So you want to take that into consideration. And once again, many of the special needs attorneys that we work with, and we can refer you to them at MassMutual, they don't work for MassMutual, but we do have names of attorneys that are either special needs parents themselves or have practices that are pure special needs. The accountant, CPA, same thing, someone that specializes. Health professionals, anyone that you've been working with that may know specifically about the person you're caring for. Guidance counselors, social workers, your religious, spiritual advisors, anyone that knows the person and knows the wishes of the family could be part of this team. So you really want to create a team of people that either know the person or can really help the person and help your family with your goals. Judd, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, it's such a critical area again, and many people have heard the term person-centered planning. And what you're really doing is taking advantage of resources here, as Kelly suggests, of those that might be aware of programs, might be aware of benefits, might be aware of tax advantages or certain things that exist, that the typical layperson is not going to understand that unless they have some of these specialized people that are involved. This is about really establishing a lifestyle and establishing a standard of the kind of living arrangements and quality of life arrangements that an individual wants to have. So all the input that you can get from these various different sources of specialized people, then that's just going to make the overall plan much more complete for the individual involved. So let's move then. It keeps skipping slides. I apologize for that.
Okay, and just to add to that slide as you go back, Jerry, an example would be the tax accountants that we work with and present to our advisors, who we try to continually give ongoing education to. Every year at this time of year puts out a list of all the deductions our families can take. If you're a tax attorney, your tax accountant, the person you're doing your taxes with isn't looking at that, they need to look at that. If you need a copy of the list, MassMutual has it. It's some of the deductions that our families can take that are not typical to all families. So that's a perfect example of working with the right professionals that can really help you and save additional money and help you pay for some of these things that you're purchasing out of your own pocket. So just,
Kelly, you're involved with a lot of national nonprofits, and so kind of speak to this whole issue about how they are resources as well to these families.
Yeah, perfect example is ataxia. So the families that we serve across the country that have a need, we would, disclose the information that Ataxia is a great nonprofit that they could call into, the support groups, the different things that our families are looking for. We work with about 20 national nonprofits so that our families can have those resources available to them. It's not that we're endorsing any one over another, it's that they're resources. And our families are constantly looking for resources. We also produce a newsletter that tells them things that are happening. things that are happening on the Hill, things that are happening within the special needs community. Those are some of the things that we want our families to know on an ongoing basis. Support groups, not just for the person that has the disability, how about the siblings? We care a lot about what's happening with the family dynamic. Maybe the parents need a support group. Maybe it's an aging caregiver. Many of our nonprofits provide this information. So we want to make sure that our families know that this information's out there. And one of the most important resources for everyone, regardless if you think you qualify or not, are government agencies. Even our wealthiest of wealthy families are getting government benefits. So we want you to know what agencies are out there, what resources are out there, and we want you to be able to take a look at them and go to them for resources.
I think we generally think in terms of the federal programs like Medicaid or Medicare and Social Security and all those kinds of things, but do recognize also many states will have specialized programs and be administered on a state level, as well as local counties will have programs, and all of those are resources. The issue is always to make sure we seek out every resource that may be available, take advantage of it in the overall plan to enhance that lifestyle for the individual.
Exactly.
So when we look at, we're talking about government benefits, and when we look at it, really is divides into two major areas. The entitlement benefits that we're all paying for through our paychecks or if we're self-employed through our taxes that provide for retirement, and I think we generally focus on retirement. The family benefits, which if you got a statement and looked at it, there's a whole section underneath retirement about various family benefits. Of course, it includes Medicare, disability benefits for the individual, and then for survivors, if there's 3 life events, a premature death, a disability of the earner, or making it to retirement, may also then provide survivor benefits to family members. It could be a spouse or children. And the children's disability benefit for a child with a disability based on his parents' record can get a benefit for their life as long as they're living. So these are critical benefits. Many of the family benefits are not fully understood, and unless you told the Social Security Administration of your situations, they wouldn't necessarily know about the rest of your family. So that's important. The public assistance benefits, SSI and what's going to be paid for SSI in more indigent situations with the appropriate kind of financial planning and legal planning. Many times assets can be set inside of trusts, and we'll talk about those in a minute. So qualifying for SSI and Medicaid and other public supports generally are means tested. And so then the structure of your planning, the structure of your estate and your assets, and what we were talking about earlier about beneficiary arrangements and everything else becomes that much more critically important. Anything to add there, Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, just a couple things. I believe that many people think that they're not going to be eligible for government benefits. And that may be the case if the dependent you're caring for is under the age of 18. But once the person turns 18, it's based on their income, which is often nothing. And they're eligible for every government program. So don't think that you're not eligible for government benefits or that there's nothing out there for you. The other thing is we're often getting government benefits and we don't even realize it. For people that are over the age of 21, maybe some of those great day programs or that work program, you have to qualify at a minimum for government benefits to get some of those programs. So having a conversation with Social Security, sitting down, is either getting close to 18 or prior to 18 to see what's available is really a smart decision. But keep in mind, everything that Jerry's talking about, some of these entitlement benefits, people don't even realize that they can get those, that's available for the person they're caring for. And I'd love to say that when you sit down with Social Security, they're going to give you this list and say, hey, did you think about all these benefits that you're entitled to? They're not going to. You need to do your homework. You need to be working with an advisor and people that can say to you, these are the things that you're entitled to. Sit down with Social Security and make sure they go over it with you. They're not going to offer it to you until you actually say to them, hey, what about the child's disability benefit? What about the survivor benefit? They're not going to just offer it. So my whole thing is just do your homework and make sure that when you go to Social Security, you're prepared.
And keep in mind that they're no longer sending out Social Security statements on a regular basis. They stopped doing that several years back to save some major money. So you can go to ssa.gov. They only send them out now every 5 years and until you're age 60. So go to ssa.gov, and there's a place where you can click on it and establish an account so that you can check your statements and the benefit structures at any point in time.
Yeah, it's great.
So
I recently did it.
the other big issue is legal structure and considerations, and these are just a list of things that may come into play. Wills and advanced medical directives and durable powers of attorney are pretty common as a part of every plan. You may or may not need trusts, and Kelly in the next slide will be talking a little bit more about special needs trust and how that walls off benefits for the purposes or accounts for the purposes of obtaining benefits. The letter of intent is something that's critically important, and Kelly will speak to that as well, because that's kind of the communication device. That's where you capture everything. So it's not a legal document, but is many times referred to. But these are all, everything you see here listed, we've had some discussion about already, and those are all things that are becoming a part of the legal structure as you begin to look at it. But more importantly here, when it comes to government benefits and when it comes to the things that may be most important in situations of disability, we want to talk about the aspect of the various different special needs trusts. So Kelly, might you give an overview there?
Sure. And I mean, we don't want to make you feel like we're rushing you today. We have about 9 minutes left, and we do want to get through the slides, but there's a couple things that are really important that we want to talk about. And the special needs trust is really one of them. Because it's, in my mind, I always think of it as a special needs mom, that it was the way to have the best of both worlds. A special needs trust, there's a couple different types. There's a third party, a first party, a pooled special needs trust, and a special needs trust fairness act. So really, most of our families set up something called a third party special needs trust because it's set up by us on behalf of the person with special needs. A first party special needs trust is one that's set up because the person has money. So something went wrong in the planning and the person was left money outright, or it could be that it's a result of a medical malpractice suit or the person got money at some point in time. The main difference between a first party and a third party trust is that a first party trust has a payback provision. So if you have a first party trust, I would say put the money in it and use it for the individual. Because once the individual passes, the government is going to look back and try to, recoup some of the money that they've spent on the person. Medicaid, right, Jeff? They're going to try to come back and try to get some of the money that they've spent. So that's the only, negative about a first party trust. Third party trust, there is no payback provision. And really what it is that it's for everything else for the person to enjoy. It's to make the quality of their life better. It's not for food and shelter. You can put money for food and shelter in something called an ABLE account. But when it comes to a first party trust or a third party, they don't want to replicate the benefits that the government is giving you. So if I wanted to leave my son, I have 4 children, I had 4 children. If I wanted to leave my son with special needs money, I would not be able to leave him money like the other 3 children, but I would be able to leave him the same amount of money in a special needs trust, not to him right out, but into a special needs trust that's going to protect that money and make sure that it's spent for him, for quality of life, for things that are going to make him, have a better life. Take him on a trip once a year, but certainly not take my whole family on a trip once a year. Get him any type of phone or any type of computer or anything that's going to make the quality of his life better, as long as it's reasonable. That's what I can use a special needs trust for. The nursing care that's not covered, the orthotics, that special treatment, that hippotherapy, anything that's going to make the quality of his life better, that government benefits are not going to pay for. So he can get every government benefit that he's eligible for, and he can have all this money in a special needs trust and use that money to make his life better. And we can have people oversee it. You can have a bank, you can have trustees, you can have people that are going to make sure that this money is spent appropriately. So it really does protect them from government benefits. And we can really, help with helping a family understand what it's used for. There's a lot of restrictions with a special needs trust, but the restrictions are that it's used for the benefit of the individual to make their life better. It's not a spending account for the family. It's for when the family's not there or the family needs money to take care of the person. That's the main thing that the government is concerned with, that I'm spending the money on my son and not on myself. If my son's not able to speak and not able to do anything, I certainly don't think that getting him a red Corvette is going to help him. That's going to help me. So, I mean, those are some of the things that we're looking at. So the restrictions is that it's for the benefit of the individual. Joe, do you want to add anything in there?
Yeah, I think, again, I think this just points out, again, when we start to look at all the legal arrangements, the various different beneficiaries, there's so many different planning things that come into play to get the best result and to make sure that you're getting all the benefits that you're entitled to. So, you know, all of this points to the fact of working with people that are specialized in this area. Another really key thing, and I mentioned it earlier, and we get into is the possibility of guardianship. So Kelly, would you like to address that?
Sure. I mean, guardianship, conservatorship is something I think is a family decision. Many families are opposed to it. The courts today are not as friendly to it as they were years ago because you're technically taking away someone's rights. If you're caring for someone that can make their own decisions, then you should consider leaving guardianship and, you know, not taking guardianship, letting them have their rights. But in the case of, you know, many of us, it's a couple things. My son wasn't able to make any decisions. He was nonverbal. We felt we needed to have guardianship because if he was over 18 and I took him to an emergency room, even though he couldn't speak, in the eyes of the law, he was his own guardian, so they wouldn't listen to me. And I really wanted to be able to have a say in what happened to him. It's the other thing, you know, I do the same thing with my other children. If something was to happen to them, I want to be able to help them make those decisions. Guardianship isn't an all or nothing. You can do partial guardianship if you're caring for someone that can make their own medical decisions, but maybe they're struggling on the financial side, you can do partial guardianship. Keep in mind that with guardianship with an individual with special needs, we're often protecting the person from others, not from themselves. There are people that prey upon our community, and that's really a big concern. Having guardianship protects them from someone taking out a credit card and convincing them that they should be spending this money on them, or give me your iPad because I'm just going to borrow it for the day. So guardianship is really helping us as caregivers to help make decisions, but it's also helping protect them. So Joe, do you want to add anything there?
And this is really as much about, as you can see here, you've got medical powers, you've got durable powers. There are alternatives to guardianship, but so much of this has to do with the capacity of the individual and the continuity of that capacity over time. So they're instruments to help in the process of ministering to the situation, which this really addresses. Another important communication piece, Kelly, is a letter of intent. And I know you're a strong believer in this. So why don't you give us an overview here?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sorry, we're rushing a little bit today. We're almost up on the 30 minutes, but we have so much great information that we want to provide you with. But the one thing I want you to walk away with is a letter of intent, not legally binding, but has been considered in a court of law. And I always say it's like a letter to the babysitter on steroids. So it tells all your hopes, your wishes, and your dreams for that individual, or maybe the individual is writing it for themselves. It talks about doctors that have been great. It talks about people that have been great in their lives, or maybe people that have not been great in their lives. Maybe prescriptions that have worked, maybe medications that have not worked, maybe doctors that are fabulous, maybe doctors that are not. So it's really the plan of, if I wasn't to come home tonight, someone could open up this letter and say, you know what, these are some of the things she did with her son. These are some of their wishes. Do they want him to get married? Does he want to get married? Does he want to live in a group home? Does he want to live with his sibling? Does he want to live in Florida? It's some of the things that you want to put down for the individual. We do have a format here at MassMutual, and if you reach out to us, we'd be happy to provide you with that. You can create it in a notebook, and it could be ongoing. With my son's letter of intent, it changed all the time. His therapies changed all the time. His medications changed all the time. It's really all your hopes, your wishes, and your dreams, and really a letter of instruction that you could follow in the event that anything happens. But if you do nothing else, if you walk away with nothing else from our presentation today, consider doing a letter of intent.
Yes, this really captures the priorities that you have and the concerns you have, and is a great means to communicate with the rest of the family as you begin to complete this as well. So Kelly, let's have some closing remarks and your thoughts in closing.
And we're always here to take questions, and we will take questions from you. I mean, one of the things at MassMutual is that we pride ourselves in the program we have. This program has been around a long time. It's been run by people like myself that are really in the special needs community, caring for someone with special needs, and that the advisors we work with, and we have over 500 across the country, just like Jerry, that work with our families, have a reason to be in it. They are special needs caregivers themselves, philanthropic, trained properly so that they know how to help your family, and they can sit down and have that conversation with you. We're putting up our website, www.massmutual.com, special needs. If you have any questions that you weren't able to get to us today, please send us a note. We would be happy to help you. If you want to know where our advisors are or someone local, we can provide you with that information as well. And I'm so glad that you invited us back today. We love coming and presenting for ataxia. I can't thank my friend Jerry enough. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you.